Hello everyone, my name is Nancy Sala, and the other day I posted a couple of photos with samples of the bales that I make for my glass pendants and my glass earrings. So I thought I'd take it a little step further and demonstrate to you how I actually make them, the tools that I use, and how I make them. So let's get started first with the tools. I will be using a flush cutter. Okay, and this is a great cutter because it cuts a nice straight edge on that end of the wire. I'm going to use a round nose plier. Okay. A flat nose plier. My handy dandy looping plier, okay. It has 3 different sizes of loops that you can make with it. I'm going to be using a rawhide mallet. You can use a rubber mallet also. And a steel block. A ball peen hammer. This is to flatten out the little zigzags of the pendant bales. Okay, so why don't we get started? The first thing that I'm going to be making is the actual earring bales. Okay, they're nice and small, perfect for earrings. Okay, so I've already pre-cut. This is 22 gauge wire. Okay. And I only use sterling. In the past, I have used copper back when sterling was just way out of sight for pricing. But I really love sterling. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is make the loop for where the actual ear wire is going to be attached. Okay, so that's how I'm holding it. And then I'm going to make that loop, and as you can see, I'm using the smallest loop on my looper plier, and there's the loop I just made. Now I want to make sure that that is nice and straight, so I'm going to bend the wire over a little bit, that way I get a nice eye loop. Okay, now we're going to do the spiral on the opposite direction. So this loop is going clockwise. We're going to do, this loop is going the one direction, okay, and we're going to go the opposite direction with the spiral. Okay, so I'm going to grab the wire with my round nose pliers at the very edge. And excuse me, I usually do this without my glasses. I can see better. So I'm going to create that tiny little loop. Okay. Just like that. It's that tiny little loop. See how it's going in the opposite direction as the other loop. Now with my flat nose pliers, I'm going to grab that loop. Okay. And then I'm going to start to spiral the wire around that little loop. Just like that. See how it's spiraling around, and continue to spiral. Until you end up with this. Okay. Now the next step is to harden the wire. And for that, I'm going to use my steel block. There we go. I'm going to put my bale right there and take my rawhide hammer, give it like 3 whacks, turn it over, give it another couple whacks, and that bail is done. So it's that easy, okay? Now, the next thing that I'm going to make is the little lightning bolt bail, okay? And I pre-cut 16 gauge wire to 1 3/4 inches. Personally, I prefer 16 gauge. I know that it's a little more expensive, but 16 gauge has a little more meat. You can use 18 gauge, and I have used it without any issues whatsoever, okay? But especially if your pendant is on the larger side, 16 gauge is really the way to go. Now I'm going to take my flat nose pliers, okay, and I'm just going to grab it just like that, okay? And I'm going to give that a 90-degree bend. Okay. Then I'm going to grab it at the bend, and then I'm going to give it a 90-degree bend in the opposite direction. So you're making like little steps. Okay. And I'm going to grab it on that bend, give it another 90, and continue on. And then the final bend, okay, I'm not going to do 90 degrees. I'm just going to do it enough so that the straight part of the wire is straight with the lightning bolt. Okay? There we go. Now the next thing I want to do is flatten out the little zigzag, the actual lightning bolt. And the reason why I like to do that is because then it gives a nice flat edge to go up against the glass. So I put it on my steel block. Okay. And I take my ball peen hammer, the flat part of the hammer, and then I start flattening it out. And again, that's going to give it a nice flat edge for it to go up against the glass. Alrighty, now, oops, sorry. Okay, so now we're going to create the loop that your chain's going to go through, or a neck wire, just like I like to use neck wires, and you can make the loop for that. For my purposes, I like using the middle one. I think that loop is more than adequate for a chain. You can certainly use a larger loop. You're going to have a little longer of a tail on that to create that loop, but I think the middle one is more than adequate. Okay, so I pinch my wire, and then I start making that loop. Okay. Okay. To make sure it's nice and straight. And there's that loop. Okay. Now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go back to my steel block. Okay. And I'm going to give that loop a couple whacks with the rawhide mallet. And you're going to always use okay. All right. And then what I like to do is to close out that little, see how it has a little bit of a gap there? So very, very gently, I just give it a couple of hits on that loop until the loop is touching the back. Whoops, here we go. The loop is touching the back of the wire, okay? So it's nice and firm, okay, and the chain's not going to come off. So that is it. The last thing would be to glue all these bales, okay? What I love to use is epoxy 330. I think it's absolutely the best epoxy that there is. Professional jewelry artists use this. I've been using it for over 20 years. Never had any issues with bales coming off of the glass. All you do is you mix it equal parts, okay? You mix it equal parts. A little bit goes a long way. I like to save my lids from jars, you know, plastic and glass jars. And I use them to mix my epoxy, and then when it's done, you just toss it, okay? So anyway, that's what I have for you. If you have any questions, you can reach me via private messaging in Facebook at Nancy Sala. I'm always game for any kind of questions that you may have. So I hope that this was helpful to you in showing you how to make these very easy, very economical, a lot cheaper than buying already made sterling silver bales. Okay, so make your own, elevate your glass, and have a wonderful day. Alrighty, see ya.